Hey friends, it's Millie with Millie's Vines, and in today's video, I may be sharing my most favorite plant in my collection. And if you are a plant parent, you know that it is very hard to pick favorites, but if I'm being honest, if I was ever in a situation where I had to grab like one or two plants and get out of the house quick, this would be the first plant that I am grabbing. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about this guy right here. Favorite plant in my collection right here. This is my monkey tail cactus, and I still to this day am just so surprised that I own this plant. It is absolutely gorgeous, and this is a big monkey tail cactus. I will start by saying that when I got this plant, I will insert pictures of it. It has already taken off quite a bit. This is probably all new growth right here. You can tell right here where it kind of starts to thin out a little bit. It's probably already grown like 4 to 5 inches for me. And I think the place that I noticed the biggest difference is in all of the new growth. When I got this, all of these were like barely starting to bud out, and they have just exploded. And you guys can imagine the second that this, even in like 6 months to a year, this plant will be unrecognizable and it's really going to fill itself in. So today we're going to be talking about plant care. We're going to be talking about lighting needs, soil medium, watering, everything that you need to know. This plant does bloom, if you guys don't know, typically in the late summer to spring, and it is just wonderful. So if you guys are interested in own one or want to own one, but you are a little bit intimidated, today's video is going to be everything that you need to know about this absolutely stunning plant. So we are going to get into just a monkey tail cactus 101, and I want to start with where this plant is found in the wilds. And from what I've heard, it is found in Bolivia in very high elevations. So one thing that's very important about the way in which it's found is it is a lithophyte, which means that it grows literally on rocks, which is kind of insane. And what that means is you will literally find these on a cliff coming out in between rocks, and it is just such an insane thing. And when I saw pictures of it, I was like even more in love with this plant. So the biggest thing that I think that alludes to is finding the right medium for these guys to be planted into. I would recommend, when I got this from the nursery in Tucson, I got it from B&B Cactus Nursery, which I actually did a video on. I think it was like 3 videos ago or something. And they actually have this in a pretty sandy, pretty gravelly mix. And at first that kind of freaked me out a little bit because it's not something that I tend to do too much, and it was really heavy. Like, this pot is so heavy, even when it is bone dry, it is just such a heavy mix because there's so many rocks in it. But since it is a lithophyte, this actually is a really good mix for it. So I would recommend, and what I've seen others recommend who have been growing this plant for a long time, is 30 to 50% of like pumice, perlite, and a little bit of like a rocky mixture. If you want to do a little bit of organic material, you can definitely do a cactus soil mixed in there. That's probably what I would do if I was to repot this. And then I would recommend mixing in a slow release fertilizer. This guy does bloom, and I will share pictures as well. Mine has not bloomed, which is part of the reason why I didn't want to film this video, because I felt like I haven't fully owned and learned everything about this plant until I get it to bloom, but it's coming, knock on wood. So that is that when it comes to its living conditions and kind of the soil that you want to make up or have this guy in. Next thing we're going to talk about, and I think this is the most important, and it's kind of intimidating when you think of a monkey tail cactus. A lot of people say that they do not have enough light for it, and that may be true, but what I will say is these guys actually do not want direct sunlight. They will scorch and they will burn, and you need to be really mindful of that. This guy, I am growing outside, and I am in Arizona, so I have about as hot of a sun as you can get in the summertime, but I have a shade cloth right here, which I think is a 50% shade cloth, so it blocks out a lot of the light. However, this is a southwest window, so the light exposure is really insane here. Easily in the summer, it will be 115 to 120 on some days. It's gonna be really hot, and this will be my first complete summer with this plant. I got it late summer of last year, so I think the things that I'll be mindful of is if it gets to those days where it's well over 100 degrees, I might be bringing this guy inside, because from what I've heard, it does best from like, I would say 45 degrees on the low side, and that's Fahrenheit, up to like 80, 90 degrees, but I can't speak for how well it will do past that. So I might bring it in when it's super hot. If it's below 45 degrees as well, I do bring this in during the night because I just don't want to chance it. So with lighting, it needs a lot of light, and if it doesn't have enough light, I'll get a close-up of this. It will start to, I don't know if I want to say that it is adulation at this point, because sometimes it does kind of grow into itself and thicken out a little bit, but if it doesn't receive enough light, it is going to start to look skinny and leggy, and that is not a good look. And the only way to come back from that, if you notice that it is staying really skinny, is to cut it off, regrow it, and give it more light. So I will say that I personally would only have this plant in a south or west exposure. Maybe you can do east if it is seeing a massive amount of sun for a long time throughout the day, or you're supplementing it with a grow light of some sort. It needs to be heavily lit on the top and throughout the base and the length of the plant as well, so keep that in mind. Some people grow this indoors, and I think that's totally fine. You just need to make sure that that sun is there, and if it isn't, that you have a grow light to help out with making sure that it gets enough light. That is key. We've talked about soil. I want to talk about watering with this plant. So this is a cactus. At the end of the day, it is always better to err on the side of underwatering rather than over. These are very susceptible to root rot, so always err on the side of not too much water, and if you're in doubt, just wait it out. The two things that I use when it comes to watering is a moisture meter. This is life-saving. Or if you want to go kind of old school, this is what a lot of cactus like connoisseurs always recommend to me. Ideally, this one would be clean, but most of the like pro people that I've talked to, they recommend using a wooden skewer. And how this would work is you would come in and gently twist this in, ideally as deep as you can go. And what I have been told is that you let this wooden skewer stay in here for ideally about like 10 minutes and take it out. If you see any moisture or any like differing color in the wood, that means that it still has some moisture down in the base of the soil, and you need to wait to let it dry out. So again, ideally this one would be clean because it's kind of hard to tell what's happening, but wooden skewer is really good, or a moisture meter. Most of the time when I see these guys, they do have a like rock mix on top because they can be really top heavy, so it's really hard to get your finger in there and feel all the way down. Another thing that I've seen, which is a good tip, is to lift the pot up and feel in the drainage hole, whether that's like the bottom of a terracotta or like this nursery pot. If you stick the moisture meter up there, or even the wooden skewer, and test it from the bottom, you can truly make sure that not only is the top dry, but the bottom is dry as well. So biggest tip here is err on the side of underwatering. They are very forgiving. They come back and they get nice and plump once you water them. Some people too say that if you really look closely here, these are super furry on the outside, but when you get a little bit closer in, they do have more pricks. So just know they will eventually stab you if you grab them hard. But sometimes if the plant is really thirsty, you can see that it gets a little bit wrinkly past the like hairs, so that can be another telltale sign. In general though, I would say in the winter months and the fall months, I truly average watering this once a month. Once a month. I remember I went October to like end of September. That was probably a little bit long, but I did not water this for like 5 weeks. I was just so nervous. Now I'm probably doing every 2-ish weeks, but this is a plant that you really want to be careful with when it comes to watering. I gotta repeat that. So in the heat of the summer, I probably will be doing every 1.5 to 2 weeks. I'll keep you guys updated there, but moral of the story, underwater, don't overwater. It's harder to come back from overwatering than it is the plant being thirsty. So because I love you guys and I do want to talk about propagation, I am going to sacrifice some of these pieces just to show you guys what that would look like and what steps that I would take. So this guy propagates really easy. I definitely recommend it. Because I do think that these are a little skinny for my desired length, considering how thick that the base of it is, I probably will, I think I might cut this one off because it seems to be the thinnest and it's growing a little bit wonky. These two might grow into itself, I'm not totally sure, but steps to take here is isopropyl alcohol to disinfect the shears that you are using. I am just gonna come in and be super lazy with this and just be very wasteful. There's definitely a better way to do that, but you get the gist. So what I'm gonna come in and do is I'm going to cut this where I feel that it really starts to thin out. Now, what I will say about this is this isn't the best guy to propagate because he is so leggy. He's probably not going to outgrow this, but just for the purpose of showing propagation, we will go ahead and show this. As I did mention, these guys can actually be a little bit sharp if you grip them kind of hard. So what I'm gonna do is use these tongs, and I'm gonna come in and cut right here. And I'm so sad to do this. 1, 2, 3. Whew, okay, that was hard for me to do. So we've got our little cutting. You can see it's nice and green. And what I'm gonna do now is I am going to let this callus for at least 3 to 4 days. And what you want to happen is you want this to kind of scab over so it is not fresh and like a open wound. That's really going to help prevent rot. So 3 to 5 days at least, let this scab over. From there, you can plant this into a soil mix. I would wait at least 1 to 2 weeks to water. It will help form roots, and then by that point, week 1, week 2, I would go ahead and give it a nice drink, and then from there, maybe water every week and a half, and you'll start to get new growth. The cool thing about this is now that I have cut it, what will happen as this guy is healing is you will start to see new little buds pop in, and those will eventually be new arms or new legs that will grow out. Usually when you cut it once, it grows at least 2 new vines, which is super cool, and that will help not only reproduce more of this plant, but also make it bushier and less leggy. So definitely don't be nervous to propagate your plants. I am kind of contemplating cutting this one, but I'm going to avoid that. So this is something I might not actually propagate this guy because he is so thin, but if you notice that your monkey tail is getting leggy, go ahead and cut it back, give it more light, and focus on regrowing it. I think we've gone through most of the, oop, do I have a spine in me? It'll be okay, we shall survive. Okay, so I think we have gone through most of the things that I wanted to discuss with this monkey tail cactus. It's honestly such an easy and forgiving plant to own, and I really want more people to not only grow this, but feel confident to grow it. I feel like it's a plant that I steered away from because I didn't think that I had the conditions or the confidence to grow it. And as long as you're not overwatering it, and as long as you're giving it enough light but not burning it, it is so easy. And this is a plant that I can kind of forget about for 4 to 6 weeks. I mean, in the wintertime, I literally caught myself not watering it for almost 8 weeks, and it was totally fine. Now, keep in mind, this is in a really big pot. So if you have something that's in more of a small terracotta pot like this, obviously you're not gonna be able to go 8 weeks, but in the wintertime, you could easily go 3 to 4 weeks and it will bounce back for you. Just don't overwater. And I think that is pretty much it. The one thing I will say that I'm nervous about is repotting this guy, and I'm not even going to think about that for quite literally probably 2 years. When you do repot these guys, you'll notice that the roots are pretty fine, but they're very forgiving. So if you repot it and some of the roots break off, it really doesn't impact the plant too much. It's not super sensitive, even though it doesn't have the most pronounced root system. I don't know, once this gets to the point where all of these little babies are overflowing off the side of the pot, I don't know in 2 years how I would repot this. It definitely will be at least a 2-person job. I'm already thinking of a way to bring all of these guys up and kind of hold it and then like repot it from underneath. I have no idea, and that is a problem for future me, but I would say since it's got finer roots, it can afford to be a little bit more root bound. And when I say root bound, I feel like some people don't necessarily like that, and I totally get it, but it just doesn't want to be in a whole ton of dirt since the roots are so fine. So if you want to err on the side of waiting longer to plant this up, I would say definitely do so. Sometimes I find when I up pot plants that have really thin root systems or shallow root systems, they will focus more on root growth rather than growing the plant itself. So just be mindful of that. Another thing that I was thinking in regards to the more shallow root system is bottom watering is a really good thing to do with this plant as well. I should have mentioned that earlier on. With this guy in particular, I would really recommend bottom watering, especially if you're nervous in the beginning. It will cause the roots to grow down and search for the water, and it will avoid having the entire medium wet. So I think that's a really good way to kind of be more careful in the beginning when you're getting used to watering needs. Definitely bottom water. But I think that is it for today's video. I hope that this helps. If I missed anything, please let me know. I really hope that this blooms for me. The other thing when it comes to blooms is it is more thirsty. So if your plant is in bloom, I would say just water it a little bit more than usual. From my experience, I don't like to water it too heavily when I see the buds forming, but the second that the flowers open up, I give it a nice drink. It is more thirsty when it's in bloom. You guys will hear about it first the second that I have any budding situation on here. I cannot wait, but I think that is it for today's video. I hope that this was enjoyable. If you have any tips that I forgot, please let us know in the comments, and thank you guys so much for being here. Me and my favorite plant will see you in our next video.